Then, hey, assalamu alaikum. This is Maruf, your host at Muslims on Fire. I have a special brother from UK, Brother Ibrahim. Hey, Brother Ibrahim, welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Maruf. It's a pleasure to be on. Thanks for
It's
having
my
me.
pleasure. It's my pleasure. You know what? You're challenging me today because the first time I installed the Microsoft Windows Teams,
Yeah.
and another first thing is that you are the first person I'm talking to in 12 hours on the podcast. That's going to be very challenging, very interesting topic. Hopefully, inshallah.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
yeah, I love that. I love that. It's
I
totally.
like I like how we've kind of been on different podcasts on the same.
Exactly. So we're gonna be very. Hopefully, it's gonna be interesting. Why don't we start with this? Why don't you start with telling us who you are and what you do, and then we deep dive.
Yeah, let's do that. So my name's Ibrahim. I'm the co-founder of Islamic Finance Guru, which is an Islamic finance comparison, analysis, review website. Think of it like the Muslim money saving expert or the Muslim nerd wallet, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I've been full time on this company, the startup of mine, for about I'd say 9, 10 months now. But it started off as a blog about 5 years ago now. So we started off as a labor of love many years ago. And for us, the core mission is how can we make Muslims wealthier globally? Because Muslims are about 20% poorer than the rest of the world. And how can we kind of help minority communities as well, generally? And we think there's two ways that you can do that. One is by helping every single Muslim investor and minority investor get access to capital and get access to getting the best investments and getting themselves on the property ladder, etc. And then the second thing is we want to get Muslim entrepreneurs the support and capital and networks they need to succeed. So those are the kind of two big things that we work on. But yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
That sounds good. That sounds good. So here's the thing. Usually, as you know, in the Muslim community, when it comes to money, we have this thing. We don't usually probably talk much. But today, I think we're going to talk about a bit more about money with you as well. So the usually show goes on as if first we're going to get to know you, your childhood, where it all starts, and up until now. Will that be okay with you?
Let's do this.
Okay, sounds good. So tell us where the little Ibrahim started the whole thing, the journey, and what are the thing that you remember from your childhood that you think you might have affected where you're today?
So I was born in Pakistan, in Karachi, many years ago, and I, I grew up. My both my parents were doctors. I came over here when I was about 4, so I came to England when I was about 4. I moved around a lot because of my dad's job. So we've lived in about 20 different places in the UK. So I've seen pretty much all of the UK, and I think from an early childhood, my mum and dad were very focused on, teaching us Islam and inculcating in us this idea that we are here to serve the community and the world, and we should be making sure that our abilities are best used for that. And that was kind of forced or encouraged upon us from the start. So I was doing da'wah tables, come rain, winter, sunshine, whatever. I was sat on a da'wah table every week for many years, from like the age of about 11 onwards, I think. And then I was teaching in a local community school, even though I was 14, and the kids were like 12. So that was a very hard class to deal with. And but yeah, I was doing that, and it wasn't like it wasn't like because I'm an amazing individual. It was more just because my mom and dad were really keen for me to do that, and they kind of pushed me into it. And I think that's a great thing. So yeah, that's kind of like a bit of a snapshot of my childhood.
So I mean, there are two things just popped out in my mind right away. So one thing is that you see, we as kids, we kind of do what our parents do, not necessarily what they say, right? So it seems that, mashallah, your parents were doctors, as you said, right? And they were serving the community. They will not probably preach to you much like to do this, but you see what they're doing and you begin to do it as well. That's a lesson number one for us as parents, right? To follow through. And the second thing I want to ask you is that um, we recently relocated from Denmark to Canada. And one of the things I noticed that, and especially my daughter, is that she was a bit upset. Oh, we're gonna lose our friends, you know. I want to like get back to you on that one. Like you mentioned, like you have moved to 20 more places. How did it have an effect on you? Did you feel this thing? You are always moving, and maybe you're not taking route and friends, or maybe you were busy enough and you didn't pay attention to that anyway.
It's a good question. So my sense is that when I was young, I basically lived for a year in lots of different places from the age of about 4 to about, I would say, when I was about 8 or 9. So it's like 4 or 5 different places. And then from about the age of about 8 or 9, we were actually very, like, I think out of all of my all of the 5 siblings, I was probably the one who had the longest period of time in quite a stable place. So like from year 3 or 4, which was about when I was 8 or 9, all the way till when I left sixth form college, which is 18, and then just before you go off to university. That period of time, that 9 years, was in one place, broadly speaking. Like we've moved around a little bit within that place, but it was still one place. And I think that that having, I think it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, because you're quite ready to be flexible, because as a kid, if you've moved around a lot, you're used to kind of having to rewire things. But then at the same time, I think there's a benefit to being stable as well and in a place for a long period of time. And so I think in a weird way, I could have got the benefit of both worlds. And I think stability, especially during the later years when you're in secondary school and high school and etc., I think that's probably where it's more valuable than in the younger years. So yeah, I think it kind of worked out, alhamdulillah, for me.
Okay, sounds good. Interesting. So as you said, so one of the things you do today, Islamic Finance Gure, like giving Muslims the financial advice and services. Did it start like that, or I mean, like when you mentioned also school, the high school, and after high school, what would you end up studying at college or university? How did it go?
So you mean at university?
Yeah, university, for example, after, because you see, the purpose of the show is that one of the things we really want to find out is that we want to get out, we are in your shoes, we're trying to follow your path in a way, and we're trying to learn. And there are a lot of teenagers and adults listening to the show, and that because something when we see, look at people they see today, right now, right now, what you do, we don't necessarily know the backstory. And always there's this, when you look at back, you can connect the dots looking back, right? Not front. So what I'm saying is that when you are studying at school and also choosing your college, whatever the major you wanted to study, like what did you choose? That's the first question. Was it something that you knew that's what you want to do? That's the question. The next question, I guess.
Yeah, so I think that from the start, like when I was thinking about university, I read this book called "Who Runs This Place,"
Okay.
which by a journalist who basically scanned the way the British establishment was structured, like the government, civil service, banks, academia, various different key institutions, and he tried to work out who was running this place, like who was in those institutions. And one thing that came up a number of times was that in the UK in particular, there's a degree called PPE, Philosophy, Politics, Economics, offered by the University of Oxford, which is a degree that lots of leaders do. So people in politics, in finance, in business, in in the media, and in the civil service, they all do this degree. So people like David Cameron, people like Ed Miliband, David Miliband, a whole bunch of the front bench in the Houses of Parliament, Robert Peston, the former BBC economics editor, and the list goes on and on and on. There are lots of people who've done this degree called PPE, and I was like, all right, fine. Well, if that's what these guys are doing, then, and there's not that many Muslims who are doing it, let me just go for that then.
So it's called PPE, huh?
Yeah, PPE, Philosophy, Politics, Economics. It's a great degree, very, very kind of versatile, and if you want to do it, it's a great degree if you do it anywhere. But obviously, the best place to do it is Oxford.
I see.
Because that's where it started.
Is it specific to Oxford? Like, but you said you could do it other places, but Oxford is the best place. Interesting. I've never heard of it. That's interesting.
Oxford started off the degree, and it's like the most famous, degree. The most famous PPE course is at Oxford, but then lots of other places do it, and they're very credible courses elsewhere as well. But from a purely like a networking perspective, this is the place to do it, because I can guarantee you that I was interacting with future prime ministers and politicians because of just the fact that I studied PPE.
I see. Wow, mashallah. So you want to be where the things at?
Yeah, but I don't think it was like it wasn't. It was a genuine kind of. I always think of Muslims as the underdog, and I feel like if I as a Muslim have the ability to try my best and get into somewhere like this, then I should. And I'm like I see myself as in many ways like a representative of the Muslim community, and I don't think, and I know for a fact that there are many people at Oxford who are much cleverer than I am, with far more ability and resources, but that's not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't look at who's better than you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He looks at what's the best that you could achieve given your talents, and it's not like, it's frankly for some people getting into Oxford is not it's not possible for them because of their background, because of the way they grew up, or whatever it was, right? And things out of their control or things in their control. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't going to demand. It's not someone who goes to Oxford is not better than someone who doesn't. But if you can, then I think you should you should try and get the maximum out of your abilities. So that's kind of like the thinking. And then after Oxford, I was always thinking about Islamic finance as the next step, because not very crudely, I was thinking, okay, finance is quite an impactful area, and Islamic finance must be obviously a great way of doing it. So that's kind of like the things that were going through my mind for after university.
Interesting. So after Oxford, so you just jump into Islamic finance right away, or you did something in between?
So I actually took the year out to start my alim course and study Islam. And whilst I was doing that, I realized I had some spare time. So I started doing my master's as well in Islamic banking and finance. And I knew from like an early age, I don't know what, like after university, I knew that in Islamic finance, if you want to do well, then you need to combine both the traditional study, but also the modern and secular studies as well. Both of those need to kind of come together for it to be really compelling. And so then I started, essentially just set about trying to achieve that. So I was doing my Ireland course for 4, 5, 6 years, from about 2013 onwards. And I did the master's, then I was in corporate law. So it was like slowly building up the key kind of pieces of the puzzle to eventually it kind of all led to Islamic Finance Guru. But I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know what the end point was.
That's exactly the point, right? You can only connect the dots looking backwards.
Yeah.
That's why we're trying to figure out how you came to be where you are today. Okay, so you mentioned that you were looking at different corporate jobs, but then you said that eventually, because I remember I read somewhere, I listened to your story that you were, is it correct that you were working at the corporate jobs, but you were not, then, is that true that then you kind of, as you said, you started thinking in the background, now it became your main thing, like, Islamic Finance Gure, is it right? Can you just, because I know sometimes this thing is like a bit fuzzy, this thing transition periods, it's not that clear. You do one thing one day, they do the other thing another day. It takes time, but at the same time, these are the stories you wanna kind of relay to the people, to understand the things, whatever you want to do in your dreams. It's not something that happens one day. It just takes time, and this is how it is then. And this is example.
Yeah, so I think for me, it was like it started off as a blog, as I said, in 2015, and it was like it was very organic. Like I just finished my master's, I was doing my corporate law stuff, and I knew I was researching for myself essentially on Islamic finance, and I was writing for myself because I found things were either too simple or too complicated online. I just wanted to put it in language that I understood, that I could kind of then, and it wasn't like really simple either. So, and people found it quite useful, and we started getting a very small following, and we just plugged away writing for fun really for many years. And in the interim, there was other various pieces going on in the background. So one of the things that we were doing as lawyers was doing a lot of pro bono free work for Muslims.
Your language changed from I to we. So what happened there? Why start saying we?
Oh, so Mohsin, my co-founder, he's the guy who's involved with me at Islamic Finance Gure. So yeah, so that's kind of where we started working together.
So it's like you guys, like 5 years ago, okay, you guys started, you know what, let's start this blog. This is how it came to be, or?
Yeah, pretty much. Like we knew each other from university and were very good friends since then. But it was, and we'd dabbled in all sorts of like random things like stock trading and things like that after university. But it was, and we'd thought about a few different like entrepreneurial projects before, but nothing like really seriously. And Islamic Finance Guru, again, it wasn't like a serious thing. It was more like, we wanted to do a blog, and let's do a blog and see what happens.
It's just a joyful thing, right? Like, let's figure this out. There's nothing serious. No more expectations. Let's see how it goes.
Exactly. And he was a corporate lawyer as well. So we were both doing like, pro bono work and doing discrimination cases and what have you. And we were also doing angel investing. So investing in early stage startups. And we realized a few years into this that actually, the biggest impact that you can have is and given our abilities, the biggest impact we can have is essentially make Muslims wealthier. Because if you are wealthier, then you're automatically just better, able to defend yourself legally. You can pay for the barristers. You can get the media coverage. You can get the politicians on your side. You can do everything, right? You can get better health outcomes, education outcomes. It links to economics a lot of the time. And at the same time, we were doing this angel investing business, and I was working as a funds formation lawyer, and I was seeing how the elite of this world, they invest their money. So like funds I'd worked on include funds that Larry Page, the founder of Google, invested in. I've seen how the Gates Foundation, I've worked in funds with the Gates Foundation, various different sovereign wealth funds, and also the Jeff Bezos family office as well. So you see all these guys, how they are investing their money, and you don't see that many Muslims, if any Muslims, that are practicing at that level. And this is a great area that the best in the world in terms of business make money. And so we had these kind of like general thoughts that kind of all pulled together with Islamic Finance Guru, which was like, the pro bono work is great, but actually our impact can be better if we just help everyone get wealthier, and we'll support the pro bono work that way. And then at the same time, this angel syndicate, angel work that we're doing, why don't we just pool all of our money together and do this in a much more impactful way, and help Muslims get access to this world, but also help Muslim entrepreneurs get access to the capital as well. And so that's kind of how Islamic Finance Guru, all the different pieces kind of pull together into what it is today.
Sounds very interesting. You know what? Speaking of finance and wealth and this, one of the things I've noticed I think this exists in all communities, especially Muslim communities. We have this thing about the money, especially like, correct me if I'm wrong, that general, I'm not talking about the right way of thinking, but general understanding about money among Muslims is usually negative, like very negative. Do you agree with me on this?
About Muslims in media.
No, 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 no. I mean, no, that's another topic. What I'm saying is that um, us as Muslims, our
Yeah.
understanding about money is usually negative. Do you agree me? Do you agree with me on this one?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think that
And
it's
why do you think it is? Because you are the finance guru, so you tell me why. Why is it like that? Why like do in general? Like you and me, maybe we have a better different understanding. Even myself, I remember when I was starting my entrepreneurship journey, like I used to have these things like this like misconceptions about money. Like if you have a lot of money, you must be rich, filthy rich, and this and that. But then you begin to say, is it really true? Like is all the rich guys are bad guys? It's not, right?
yeah.
And what does it really money mean? If someone is rich, it doesn't mean someone stole it somewhere, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that. Yeah, sometimes it may mean this, but it's not the case. If you talk about entrepreneurship, it's something else. I just would like to know, like, your take on this. Like, why, not only as human, but as even Muslims, as like we look at this money as something negative. When in reality, what is it? Just tell us about this.
Yeah, sure. So I think
Sorry
that
to put you
it's
on the spot, but I
no,
think
no,
that's
no.
a
So I actually wrote like a quite a long article called "Is It Wrong to Be Rich in Islam?"
okay.
which you should check out. It's interesting.
Okay.
At least I think so. And in it, the argument is, in a nutshell, that no, it is not wrong to be rich in Islam, but you may need to make sure that your relationship to wealth is such that it is in your pocket and not in your heart.
In your
And
hand, not in your heart. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly. And you are making money a means to an end, which is what you really believe in. It's Islamic, and it's getting you to Jannah ultimately. It's not the end in itself. And money is a strange thing that I think it changes some people more than it does others. And if you are, you should try and get as much money as you possibly can until the point where you find that, this is changing me in a way that is not good. And that's the point that I think you stop. Then there are some people who are able to continue. They don't get affected by money that much, and they can make huge amounts of money and are very charitable still, and they're not affected by it. And if that's you, then I think it's almost like your duty to try and make as much money as possible, because you are from amongst the few people who can do that and handle it as well mentally. So you have almost like a duty on you from the community perspective to do that, because you need like the Abdurrahman ibn Aufs and the Uthman ibn Affans of the world to actually do something. And if the Abdurrahman ibn Aufs of the world said, you know what, I'm not going to make any money, then I actually think that the Muslim community as a whole loses out.
Would suffer in some way. Yeah.
Because there's not that many of you out there.
That's a very interesting take. So what you're saying is that let the money be in your head. This is lesson one, right? Let the money be in your hand, not in your heart. And lesson two, what I'm saying is that what you're saying is that I think I also heard something similar. So what I'm learning is that so money for some people, it really amplifies what's truly in their heart, right? It will show them their true colors in some extent, and it's, in some cases, as you're saying, in some of the companions of the Prophet you mentioned, when you see them getting more money, it doesn't really change them, right? And they will be doing even more good. And if that is the case, that's almost like your obligation to make more money and benefit others. That's an interesting take, very interesting take. Okay, so what is money? How do you define money? What is the money? What's wealth?
I mean,
Am I asking difficult questions?
no, not at all. Do you mean in like a technical sense, or what
No,
do
I
you?
mean, like, define as the way you want. Like, because you see, I think everything starts with definition, right? So how should we look at money as Muslims? How do our approach should be to the money?
Yeah, I think we should approach money as very instrumental, and it should be something that you use as a tool to achieve your life goals. And those life goals, and this is the bit where people fail, because most people don't have life goals. They don't have a set of end locations that they want to get to that are inspired by Islam and their religion. And when you don't have those end principles or end goals in mind, and therefore a kind of a general pathway to get there, in front of you, at that point you see that other people are going for money because it's a nice thing and you can do nice things with it, and therefore you go for money because of these short-term, pleasure inducing reasons, as opposed to how you should see everything around you as in tools to get you to the end point. And I think money, just like everything else, your time, your connections, whatever, if you don't have, if you're trying to maximize for short-term pleasure, then you will abuse it. If you're trying to maximize for long-term pleasure, i.e. Jannah, then I think you will use it in a much more effective way.
I see. That's a very interesting approach. One of the dilemmas as Muslims we always face, as you know, that deen or dunya, right? That's the thing. We're always thinking like it's like always a balancing act. Like, what's your take on this? Like,
so I think that there is almost like it's a false dichotomy. I think that deen is actually dunya and vice versa, because if you are saying that, you know what, I'm going to spend 8 to 10 hours of my day doing dunya related stuff, and then I'll think about the deen. I mean, that's a third of your life. That's like 60, that's like 30 years or so, potentially. Now, if that's the case, then it's a bit of a waste of a third of your life doing something that isn't actually going to benefit your akhirah. Now, if you make your your means of sustenance also something that gets you to the akhirah, then your entire dunya becomes your akhirah, if that makes sense. And I think most people should try and get to that point. And I think everyone, in fact, should try and get to that point. And it's a matter of intention, and it's a matter of mindset. And like, you don't have to become an imam to make your dunya rework your akhirah. You could be a telecoms engineer, right? And that could be your akhirah if you are approaching it with the right intentions and thinking about bigger than yourself.
that's a very interesting approach. I actually 100% agree with you. Like as you said, it's not deen or dunya, actually dunya and deen, because you're gonna go to the to the akhirah as even from here through here, right? You have to go through here. You cannot avoid it. You just have to go through this. Very interesting approach. So what you mentioned is interesting. So what you're saying, look, Ibrahim, so if you look at today, your life today, how it turned out to be and what you're doing today, would you consider yourself a person, a Muslim who is doing what you love and loving what you do as of now?
Yeah.
So like, if you're now looking back, like if you look back, like that's the whole story, right? That's from your childhood, what you study, and to coming to this point. When you're connecting the dots, looking backwards, like, do you see a theme? Do you see a pattern, or do you see a thing that connected all of them coming through? Maybe it's a one thing, maybe it's a couple of things. What do you think made you just follow who you are today and come to this point? What would you say to the listeners? What could it be? Do you see a pattern? To some extent.
Sorry, say that last thing again.
So what I'm saying is that, like, when remember, like the mention, like when you were 14 years old, you were teaching to kids and 12 kids, and your parents taught you to be to serve the community, but at that time probably you didn't have an idea that what you are doing today, right? You are teaching finance to Muslims, but it's somehow or some way now that's a thing for you. Like, what we are trying to understand is, like, what happened along the way that it takes you to this point in life. What was it? How do because you see, the question I'm asking is that, so in each episode, what I really try to understand when I'm talking to people like yourself is that trying to understand them is that the first of all, like these people, like as we call the Muslims on fire, these are the people who do what they love and they love what they do and impact people, right? The question is that how do we get there? How do
Yeah.
a person who is listening, imagine there's a teenager from Bangladesh or Pakistan or Sri Lanka or maybe Uzbekistan listening to this podcast and saying, okay, Muhammad is good. Muhammad, okay, he studied Oxford. He's now doing, mashallah, the VC, and he's helping the Muslims with the finance. But how did he get there? How did he find out what he really care about? And how did he get there? That's the question. What would you say to that?
I'd say that you constantly try and recalibrate as you are going further and further down the road on this journey to make sure that you are trying to optimize your resources to kind of trying to get the best out of yourself. But I think more than anything else, just having quite challenging goals and having like level 4 goals rather than level like 1 or 2 goals. Because let's say it's like a stratosphere and there's different levels. If you are aiming upwards and trying to get to the 4th level, even if you don't quite get to exactly the point where you want to get to on the 4th level, but you end up slightly to the left or the right, you're still at the 4th level. And the key thing wasn't even the level, the key thing wasn't even the end point where you got to a level 4. The key thing was that you were the impetus upwards to get to that position. Whereas if you were aiming at level 1, then you just wouldn't have that level of impetus because it's quite easy to be at level 1. So I guess what I'm saying is having lofty ambitions and targets and challenges for yourself essentially just gets the best out of you.
I see. Okay, so aim high. Is
Exactly.
what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Okay. So tell us about like what you guys up to these days. What are you guys doing? I mean, I know you said it's a blog, but today, where are you guys? That's the first question. The second question is, where do you guys see yourself in the next 3-5 years?
So I think that inshallah, we just want to continue with what we're doing on, we've got Islamic Finance Gure and we've got IFG.VC, which is the angel syndicate. With Islamic Finance Gure, we really want to continue on this journey, become much more global in our reach and in helping Muslims all over the world. We would like to continue tightening the various different bits of our company, like for example the halal investment platform. We'd like to upgrade that. We'd like to improve our content. We'd like to improve our website, even honing on that side of things. And then with IFG.VC, I think the next stage is continue and grow the amount that we invest per month from somewhere like 300,000-400,000 to over 1 million per month. And then also potentially set up a fund alongside it, and then think about other interesting things, because there's so many different ways that Muslims can be helped to get into good investments that they don't really have right now. So yeah, a bunch of different things to keep us busy probably for the next 10 years or a lifetime.
I see. So tell us to the listeners, where can they follow you or where they can find you to want to explore you, your personality, your journey? What would be the best place?
So we've got the website, obviously Islamic Finance Guru. You should subscribe to that, and that way you'll get my regular emails and find out what we're up to. But also YouTube is at Islamic Finance Guru. YouTube is a good place, or Twitter as well. But we're not that active on Twitter.
I think no one is that active anymore on Twitter except politicians.
Yeah. Or LinkedIn, or if you're a professional, you can get me on LinkedIn as well.
Sounds good. So one of the questions I usually ask towards the end is there a question I should have asked, but they didn't, and maybe you want to ask and answer that question to yourself, to the listeners, potential followers?
I don't think so. I think you've done a very good job.
We covered everything. Now we know everything about you, I guess.
Yeah.
No. Tell us something. So since your co-founder is not here, tell us something interesting about Brother Muhsin. Maybe sooner or later we'll catch up with him as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Mohsin is he's a great guy. He studied French and Russian at Oxford.
Russian. Wow,
Yeah,
interesting. Do you know I
yeah,
speak Russian?
yeah. I gathered because you were saying there was a big Russian influence, right, in Uzbekistan back
Yeah,
in.
it used to be. It used to be. So we
Uh,
should probably speak with him in Russian. That'd be
yeah,
awesome.
I don't think he's that good at Russian though. I think he's
Okay.
much better at French, and he's great in the sense that I've known him for that so long, and it just helps from a trust perspective. Like he's a completely known quantity. You know his strengths, you know his weaknesses, you know his family, you know everything, right? So that really helps. And I think one of the big strong qualities that Mohsen has is he's got a great commercial instinct.
What
Um,
instinct?
commercial instinct,
Okay. Okay.
which I think is actually very rare. Having kind of experienced the world a lot more over the last decade, I think there's very few people who have like a good business instinct, and he's got it. So
MashaAllah.
so that's been really helpful for us.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. And we'll catch up one of these days. Until then, for the listeners, we'll include in the show notes your links as well. And may Allah help you in your journey, and so may Allah help you help Muslims to become wealthy, and so we can help us and everyone else. Having said that, I
I
say
mean,
Assalamu alaikum.
like.